We kick this hour off with election news and unfolding in KwaZulu-Natal. Judge Dhaya Pillay is expected to administer the signing for the Electoral Commission at the Durban ICC. Essentially, contestants of the elections are expected to commit to promoting tolerance and order in order to have a free and fair election next month. Those proceedings have just begun. Let's listen in.
Slides that we're going to be running. We have 44,000 people that will be working in our voting stations. When we look at the slide that looks at where we are now, you'll get an idea of how many of them are on board. The critical ones, though, are the presiding officers and their deputies who we recruited in preparation for the registration weekend. So we were already sorted in terms of the two main people that are managing our voting stations. We've been training them since last year, and they are now in the last phase of training. Recruitment criteria, we always feel it's important that we indicate what our recruitment criteria is. I'm not going to go through everything that you see, but just to give an indication that before we employ a presiding officer or a deputy, we run their names by political parties for them to make sure that everyone that we have recruited meets the criteria. They keep that list for weeks, and they come back to us and tell us if they believe there's anyone who is either a presiding officer or a deputy that has got a potential to damage the reputation of the Electoral Commission at the voting station level. And we are able to investigate if the allegation is true. We are able to replace those people. So by the time they get to work at voting station, they have gone through that scrutiny. We also run all their ID numbers by the security cluster, just to make sure that we do not have people who have got records of serious offenses presiding over a process as sensitive as elections. So that's a vigorous process that we go through before we can confirm that somebody can work as a presiding officer or a deputy, because they manage quite a sensitive process in a voting station, and we can't have people that are already compromised presiding over that process. There's a whole lot of other things. I'm not going to go into each one of them, but I would want to indicate that one of the key criteria is that you cannot work for the commission if you have occupied a leadership position in a political party or an entity with party political aims, or even if you don't hold a position anymore, if 5 years has not lapsed since you held that position, you are also disqualified from occupying any position in the Electoral Commission. There is then other people who don't hold positions, but who are known as activists for political parties or unions, and we make sure that anyone who has a high political profile is not employed in the environment. But we don't do that alone. We do that together with political parties through party liaison committees that exist in every municipality in the province and as well as at a provincial level. Candidate nomination summary, I thought, is an area that you'll be interested in. Where we are sitting now, the last row on the slide is the final figures. We have 52 parties on the national ballot. We have 36 parties on the regional ballot, and we have 33. On the regional ballot, we also have one independent in the province. And on the provincial ballot, we have 33 parties, but that's not where we started. You'll see that with the national ballot, we started with 72, and we had 20 that were disqualified, and we are now sitting at 52. At the regional, we started with 101 submissions. 65 were disqualified, and we are left with 36. On the provincial ballot, we started with 59. 26 were disqualified, and we are now sitting with 33, which are the parties that you're going to be meeting here today, at least they are leaders. Operational readiness, a quick one. The last column indicates the percentage completion of each of the critical milestones on our elections critical path. If you look at staff recruitment and training, we are sitting at 100% in terms of area managers. Area managers are very key in our environment. They manage a cluster of voting stations, usually a cluster within a ward, but depending on the road network in that community. We sometimes straddle wards to make sure that it's easy for them to supervise a cluster of voting stations. Staff recruitment, we are sitting at 51%. Which includes the presiding officers and their deputies. Staff training, we are almost complete, sitting at 98% with phase 1. Our training, we use a modular approach where we call them in to deal with 2 modules at a time. Currently, we are now busy with phase 2, where we are now doing the practicals on the voter management device that we use as our operational tool in voting stations, but we also focus on counting processes. So that's where our training is right now, and we plan to conclude all training by the end of April so that we use May for mop-up sessions. We also train our stakeholders, including the SAPS. We also train trainers for political parties so that those people can then go back and train party agents for agents for independence in preparation for the election. So that process have already started. We also are going to have next week in this province the training of all the prosecutors and the legal department from the SAPS, because they are an important arm in the implementation of justice in the province. So we want to make sure that all the stakeholders understand exactly what are the offenses, what is allowed and not permissible, and what are the applicable penalties in cases of the contravention of the code. Warehouses, we thank again our municipalities in this province. We have moved almost 98% from using privately owned facilities as our storage facilities in all the 44 municipalities. They've been able to give us facilities that we can use to store material, but we are also using army bases and police stations to store our sensitive material in all the 44 municipalities. Materials, we pretty much have all the materials that we need to deliver these elections. It has arrived in KwaZulu-Natal, but I cannot tell you where it is. Voter management device is our magic tool that we use to ease our operations at a voting station level. They are currently undergoing servicing and they are being loaded with this voter's roll so that when you arrive at the voting station, we can check whether you have shown up at the correct voting station. This is the list that I'm not going to go through, is all the various players in the election operations in this province. They participate at various levels of the operations, and we wouldn't be able as an entity on our own to deliver elections without these entities that you see. Just a quick one to indicate how we work with the various structures. We have the Provincial Joint Operational and Intelligence Structure, which puts together all government departments and all the players in the security cluster to plan and coordinate the security for the elections. It will change into a different structure as we get closer to the elections, which will meet more often. But we also have the Priority Committee, which focuses particularly on elections, which involves some of the entities that were on the first slide that I shared. We also have the Multi-Party Political Intervention Committee, the MPPIC, which deals with problems of a political nature that requires political solutions, where we sit with political parties, the leaders of political parties, and we scan and monitor the environment and identify possible troubles in various pockets of the province where we require an intervention by one or two of the political parties to bring the environment to a state where it is possible for us to deliver a free and fair election in any part of this province. It's a unique structure in KZN established in 2011, but it's a very important structure in terms of our liaison with political parties outside of the operations. We also have the Provincial Election Steering Committee, which is made up of the members of the security cluster, as well as the Electoral Commission and the province, and particularly COCTA and the Office of the Premier, where we look at government intervention. If there is a government department that is, for whatever reason, is not able to rehabilitate the infrastructure in voting stations, we can go and plead with the government to top them up so that they can clear the roads and clear sites for the erection of the tents in case they've run out of budget. There are a lot of other stakeholders, including municipalities, who assist us in a whole lot of ways, and civil society institutions that we work with in our voter education and outreach program. As I move towards closure, these are the areas that are new in the environment, which is important for all of us to see. We already know there are independents that are going to be contesting, but there's also things that affect voters that we all need to be aware of. In the last slide, I will share the dates with you. One of them is the fact that you can't rock up anywhere and vote like it has happened in previous national and provincial elections. You now have to notify the commission if you are not going to be at your voting station. I think that's a major change. Another change affects South Africans abroad who needed to apply to vote overseas. We had a registration weekend at the end of January in all our missions abroad, and we created the international segment of the voters' roll. But if you were not aware at the time that you're going to be overseas, you have an opportunity to notify us now so that we put you on an overseas segment of the voters' roll. Lastly is the 3 ballots. I'm not going to say much. I'm sure anyone in the room now is aware of the 3 ballots. We are everywhere talking about the 3 ballots. Lastly, I thought I'll touch on the timetable in terms of the coming dates. We know that the President proclaimed the election on the 23rd of February, and that signaled a whole lot of things in terms of the election timetable. It signaled the closure of the voters' roll, the opening of candidate nomination, which closed on the 8th of March. It signaled the opening of the period for people who need to notify us that they'll be voting abroad, and a whole lot of other things that kickstarts at the point where the President proclaims the election date. Lastly, the upcoming timetable dates, just for people who may benefit from some of these provisions. The first one is the one I spoke about. If you know you're not going to be in the country and you know which country you're going to be, you can apply to be in that country's segment of the voters' roll so that they expect you to show up and vote on election day. The second one is the applications for special votes, which affects people like pretty much all of us here who will not be able to be at our voting stations on election day, but we will still be in our voting districts on a Monday and Tuesday preceding the election date. We can apply for a special vote to go to the voting station and vote on a Monday and Tuesday before elections, but it also assists people who are, for reasons of infirmity, are ill or pregnant, have disabilities, have difficulties in getting to voting stations. They can apply for a home visit. We can visit them in their homes on the Monday and the Tuesday. Those applications will close on the 3rd of May. So if anyone wants to benefit from that provision, you can go to our website. There's a link and you can apply. 17th of May is another magic date for people who cannot benefit from the special vote provision because they will already be outside of their voting districts on Monday and Tuesday, and they can neither be at their voting station on election day. You can apply for a Section 24A provision. That's just a section in the Electoral Act, and you can indicate where you're going to be so that we can put you on the supplementary list in a voting station where you think you are going to be, because you won't be on your own. So the 17th of May is important because I think the majority of us will benefit from this provision. And then we have the 17th and the 19th and the 18th for people that will be voting overseas, because we need to have ample time to roll back those ballots so that they are counted back in the country with the rest of the ballots. So they will vote either on the 17th or the 18th, depending on the religious holidays that are observed in different countries. And then, like I've indicated, 2 days preceding the election date is the special votes, both at the voting station and for the home visits, and we'll administer both on those 2 days. And then, of course, the election day. And then within 7 days of an election, the Commission is expected to release the results. We will release the preliminary results, but then within 7 days, we should have, in terms of the law, released the final results. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the state of readiness and a little bit of voter education as we prepare for the 29th of May. And we look forward to working with all of you. Thank you very much.
Asibonge kakhulu. Thank you very much, PO, Umama Masinga. You know, when you know your story, you don't go by script. You just flow. I love the way she does it. Thank you very much, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to eat a humble pie and apologize. There was a great omission. Those who are church leaders, religious leaders, they know great commission, but they don't know the great omission. So there was a great omission. Really, our apology. We didn't acknowledge the presence. We did not acknowledge the presence of the Premier of the Province of KwaZulu-Natal, Umama Unomsatu Ngcobe. We really apologize. She is gracing this great event, not alone, but also with Speaker of the Legislature, Ms. Boyce. We also greatly apologize for that omission, and all other MECs that are present here. We welcome you, and we really feel blessed that you are part of this. And gracing it is not only a responsibility, but it comes with a blessing, you know, when the seniors are in the house. Thank you very much. But anyway, the consolation is that you always keep the best for last, eh? Angit. Thank you very much. On that note, let me also quickly go through and acknowledge the political parties that are present here, because we might find that we are meeting, but it's not a meeting of the political parties. We might see the faces that we are familiar with. And time. Okay. In the interest of time, they say, let's wait, because they will get a chance and then we will get to know who is here. Thank you very much for that. We are led. Let me quickly call to the fore Judge President. You know, when you are program director, you can maneuver your program that way to make sure that everything goes to plan. Let me call Judge President to come to the fore. And, you know, we have anticipated to hear from Judge President. Can I invite Judge President to come to the podium? Our Judge President in KZN, TP Poyo Dlwati. I've got a lady who interprets here, and lo osukela umanjomane ngicishe ngathi umamhlongo ngayi ngakhumbula ukuthi no akuthiwa umamhlongo umanjomane. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Program Director. I had not yet thought I was going to be called, but obviously I had forgotten that I had made a request to be excused a bit early because our courts need to continue running. The chairperson of the Electoral Commission and all the commissioners present, the Honorable Premier of the province, Honorable Dube Ngcobe, the Honorable Speaker of the Provincial Legislature. Those are the three arms of government in KwaZulu-Natal. You are led, including myself. The leaders of all the political parties present, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Director of Public Prosecutions, the Provincial Commissioner, Senior Magistrate Sibia of the Durban Cluster, I greet you all this morning. I almost said in the name of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, amen. Mine is to assure you that the Judiciary is ready to deal swiftly with all matters that will come out of any wrongdoing that might happen during this time. I am a praying woman, and I've started praying already. I don't want our province to become known for anything during this time. Because we are known elsewhere, it must go elsewhere. We have had enough with the floods, with everything else. This part that we can control, honorable political leaders, we don't want any extra work. We are short-staffed. We've got fewer judges and fewer magistrates in KZN compared to the population. So if you would help us to put it all under control, we would be grateful to you. Section 19 of the Constitution provides for the right to vote, the right to stand for public office, and the right to free and fair elections. Chief Justice Zondo, in One Movement South Africa NPC versus the President of the Republic of South Africa and others, held that these are very important in our constitutional democracy because they are the primary pillars of any democracy. This is because without the right to vote, there can be no democracy. The right to vote means nothing if it is exercised in an election that is not free and fair. The right to vote is meaningless unless it is accompanied by the right to stand for public office. The right to vote, the right to stand for public office, and the right to free and fair elections are inextricably intertwined. South Africans expect that political parties and candidates will uphold the values of the Constitution, especially Section 19, that the elections will be free and fair, that those aspiring to positions in Parliament or as the President are honest and act with dignity, respect, and integrity, especially to their fellow party members, but more so towards the public and the press. And there will be no incitement to violence, and that journalists are able to report on the elections and especially on the parties and their members. With regard to the press, through news reports and political debates where the public learns about the campaigns, the reputations, the promises, etc. of the parties and their members, and also by assisting in providing the public with information so that on voting day, which this year is 29 of May, the public can choose who they wish to vote for based on their promises and campaigns. In terms of jurisdiction, Section 24B of the Electoral Commission Act 51 of 1996 provides that the high courts and magistrates may hear particular disputes and complaints about infringements and appeals against decisions arising from such hearings. The reference to particular disputes denotes the Electoral Code of Conduct. The structure of the courts in terms of the Superior Courts Act 10 of 2013 and the Judicial Norms and Standards, the Judge President, as the head of the division of the High Court, is responsible to manage the judicial functions of that division, including the allocation of cases, and responsible for the coordination of the judicial functions of all magistrates' courts falling within jurisdiction of that division. Today's discussion is what to expect where you do not honor the pledge that you will be signing, and how we, the judiciary in KwaZulu-Natal, may hold you accountable if it is proved that you have dishonored the Electoral Code of Conduct. Section 94 of the Electoral Act provides that no person, registered party or independent candidate bound by the code may contravene or fail or comply with a provision or fail to comply with the provision of that code. And Section 99 provides that the Electoral Code must be subscribed to, which is what you're going to be doing today, by every registered party before that party is allowed to contest an election, by every candidate before that candidate may be placed on a list of candidates in terms of Section 31, and by every independent candidate before that independent candidate may be placed on a list of independent candidates in terms of Section 31F. A code is...
All right, if you've just joined us, it's just gone 11 o'clock, and these are live visuals coming out of the Durban ICC, where the IEC in KZN is preparing for a signing ceremony in order to allow contestants of the elections to pledge their support for a free and fair election come May the 29th. It's still a bit of the opening remarks that are being read out now, but by and large, KZN saying they're ready for the 29th of May.